Welcome to another edition of A Week of Mass Shootings. So we're going to take a look at the mass shootings from this past week, but we're going to start off and we're going to look at which states have had the most so far. And the last time we did this was on July 30th. And Texas led at that time, followed by California, Illinois, Florida, and Louisiana. And not much has changed except Florida is no longer in the top 5 and Pennsylvania is. Texas has 48, Illinois 41, California 34, Pennsylvania 28, and Louisiana has 26. And those that are just right behind the top 5 that in another month or two we could check and they might be in the top 5. We got Ohio with 25, Florida with 24, and North Carolina with 23. Okay, so we're going to start in Chicago, Illinois, where 4 people were injured. And this is the 25th mass shooting in Chicago this year. And in this one, all of the victims were between the ages of 18 and 20. And basically this was 2 groups were arguing on the street and someone started shooting. And this happened in the Austin neighborhood. And that neighborhood has accounted for 8% of all the homicides in Chicago this year. So that's not a safe neighborhood at all. All right, then we go to September 6th in El Paso, Texas, where 4 people were injured. And this is the 4th one in El Paso this year. And basically this is just a shooting that happened at a park. And then September 6th again, we go to Jackson, Mississippi, where 1 was killed and 3 were injured. And this is the second one for Jackson. And a 29-year-old Kedryn Wright, he died. He was the one that died. And the 4 victims were approached by an unknown man who just started shooting at them and then ran away. And then on September 6th again, Brooklyn, New York, and this is a 4th one in Brooklyn. 4 people were injured, and the victims were aged between 21 and 34, and they had 3 suspects in this one. All were arrested, and this happened just after 3:30 p.m., so it was a daytime shooting. And the gunman exited his vehicle and was just standing there waiting for the 3 male victims. And when he saw them, he opened fire and accidentally hit a female as well as the 3 people that he was trying to shoot at. Okay, we go to September 7th in Dallas, Texas, where 1 was killed and 3 injured. And this is the 9th one in Dallas this year. And we don't talk about Dallas all that often because we mainly, if we're talking about Texas, we're mainly talking about Houston. But Dallas, this is their 9th one, and Houston has only had 8 this year. So maybe we should be paying a little more attention to Dallas than we have been. But the suspect was arrested, and that was 44-year-old Larry Deckard, and he's the guy in the photo. And this basically happened outside a liquor store around 4 p.m. Deckard was standing outside this liquor store and then suddenly pulls out a gun and just starts firing. And that's what the police got from watching the surveillance video, is that he was just standing there and just started firing. So it's unknown if he was actually targeting anyone. The way it was being told, at least at first, is that he just decided to start shooting and just pulled out a gun and started shooting. Okay, again on September 7th in Youngstown, Ohio, 2 were killed and 2 injured. And this is the first one in Youngstown. And 22-year-old male and a 30-year-old female were the ones that died. And a child was one of the ones that were injured. And it was basically just a graze wound, but one of the victims was a little kid. And it's under investigation. And all it really said was it was not a drive-by. So that doesn't really help us that much. So there weren't any on September 8th. And that was the first day this month that hasn't had one. And I likely will get through this month with only a few days that don't have one. September 9th in Chicago, Illinois. This is their 2nd this week, and so they're 26th overall. 4 people were injured, and the victims were all aged between 23 and 39, and they were all male. And they were shot inside a home, and it said that a female is being questioned for this shooting. And I didn't get a follow-up on it, but there aren't that many female mass shooters. I mean, it happens, but there aren't that many. So this would be, a rare occurrence if it did happen. And now we go to September 9th in Rock Hill, South Carolina, where 4 were injured. And this is the first one in Rock Hill this year. They were all males between 19 and 25, and 2 suspects were arrested, 20-year-old Jakal Johnson and 20-year-old Jayrin Hemphill. And both were charged with attempted murder. And the suspects thought the men were other people that they had an issue with. So it's being called as misidentified and wrongly targeted, which I don't know how much that matters. And Hemphill and Johnson were both denied bond, and each faces 7 counts of attempted murder. Now, they hit 4 people, so there must have been a few other people there that didn't get struck. And under South Carolina law, a conviction for each count of attempted murder carries a possible sentence of up to 30 years. So we'll see if that actually happens, but these guys could be looking at easily the rest of their lives in prison if South Carolina sticks to that, which if they do, it'll be a rare, I would be surprised if they actually give them 30 years for each of those counts. All right, now we go to September 10th in Indianapolis, where 5 were injured, and this is a 6th one in Indianapolis this year. The victims were aged 25 to 51. The male was 25, and the other 4 were females, aged 30 to 51. There was more than one shooter. It happened around 1 a.m. just off Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Street, so we know how safe that area is. And basically a fight broke out. Someone started shooting, which led to others start shooting. And on September 10th in Detroit, 2 were killed and 2 injured, and this was a 5th one for Detroit this year. The 2 killed were young adults, and the 2 injured were teens. Police were called at 6 p.m. to a call of young people with guns. They all fled when the cops showed up. An hour later, police were called back for a shooting. And basically what happened was there was a physical fight that turned into a gunfight between the 2 groups. So those were all the mass shootings from this past week. And I had said in the weekly homicide report that I thought we would hit the 500 mark for mass shootings this year by Sunday, and we did not. So we're still looking at getting to that 500, which we should be at no time. And it's possible that some of this stuff just needs to be updated, and it will be, we'll hit the 500 maybe even before you guys watch this video. This is a weekly video, so if you like this type of content, hit that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and consider subscribing. And I'll catch you next week.